Now, this is me still on the worship team. We're not doing anything crazy.
Yeah.
We were drinking, but nobody's getting drunk or anything like that. And then me and the other friends, we run into somebody we see at church. And, me being friendly, hey, how you doing? You're like, hey, oh, brother, what are you doing here? And
this episode is brought to you by Zing Media Co. Zing is a social media marketing company that helps small to medium-sized companies and organizations that want to make a positive impact in their communities. If you're in need of social media marketing, then reach out to Zing. Contact the team at zingmediaco.com.
Hey everyone, my name is George Originales. I'm the executive producer of Saved and Tatted and the creator of Radio Faith. If you've been following Charles and the Saved and Tatted show for a while, then you know that this show used to be on the Radio Faith YouTube channel. But you're here now and you see that Saved and Tatted has its own channel. Saved and Tatted is still part of the Radio Faith family, but Charles and I have been planning some new things for SNT, which means it's going to grow and it needs its own digital space. Also, Radio Faith is making plans to produce 2 new shows, which will be part of the Radio Faith family alongside SNT. I'll tell you more about those 2 new shows at the end of this episode. Thanks for taking the time to check out Saved and Tatted. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell to be notified when new episodes drop. Go ahead and let us know what you think about this episode in the comment section. And if you think someone else needs to check it out, then click the share button and send them the link. Thanks again for checking out the episode. Now I'm going to stop talking because I know you're here to listen to Charles. God bless.
Okay, we'll figure it out. So, okay, now you got to get that in there, the hand clap. 6'6", okay, let's go. No.
let's start with something else.
Yeah. Okay, so anyways. Well, guys, welcome to the Saved and Tatted podcast. I have my boy KJ here. If y'all are watching this one, this is going to be a very entertaining one because we have no idea what we're going to talk about.
That's
true.
True.
We're just going to allow the good Lord to point us in hopefully a positive direction.
I'm hoping for that too.
Yeah. So how you been, man? What do you got going on in your life?
I've been good, man. Just work, church, and music. And, sometimes it ends up all being the same, but I'm okay with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all.
So you're actually helping with this podcast.
Yes.
A lot of this is going on because of you. What is it that you're doing behind the scenes?
I am doing all the audio, so the way you hear this, the stuff the way we get the audio into the real world, onto what you're listening to now, is basically my job is transferring that.
And so you've been doing audio and music and stuff like that for a long time? Because I know we met at our previous church. You were bass player?
Yeah, and the guitar player.
And guitar player, so both, I guess.
Well,
any other instruments you play?
If it has strings, I can do a thing.
Let's continue. So for all of y'all who don't know KJ has a Michael Scott mind and is that's what she said. So just any innuendo he has, he's going to laugh about it. So we'll just go with that. But
yeah.
So audio and stuff, man. So this podcast, I've actually been wanting to do this podcast for quite a while.
Yeah. So congratulations.
Thank you, man.
We've been talking on and off on it for several years.
Yeah, it's been about. Yeah. I've been wanting to do it for about 4 years. I think me and you have been in talks about it for almost 3.
Yeah, about 3 years.
I've reached out to you about microphones and stuff like that because
it's
of that.
Like every other month. Hey man, like what mic do I get? How does this work? How does this work? And so now, like all those. Yeah. All that knowledge and stuff has finally
derived here. Here we are in the Saved and
Saved and Tatted
podcast.
Charles's
room,
tattoo
warehouse.
shop right here.
Yeah. Come and get tatted.
Right.
Do you have any tattoos?
I don't.
None.
I have a funny story though.
Okay. Is it appropriate?
Yes, it's appropriate.
Go ahead.
So enough. George here, his kids. So I used to have like a warehouse business type thing, and he brought his kids to help paint. They like being involved in anything. And I have my tank top on, and I'm a big boy, so I got stretch marks, and I forget which one, but they asked actually asked me what does your tattoos mean? But I think it was Silas. I don't remember. It was one of the boys. But yeah, they see my stretch marks and they're like, "Oh, I like your tattoos. What are those?" And I'm just like, "It's
stripes.
lightning." Yeah, lightning, tiger stripes. So yeah, other than that, no.
Kids have no filter.
They
I
don't.
swear.
That's what I love about kids. They say what they want.
Now that needs to be your first tattoo.
Yes, just lightning
Just a
on
lightning.
one arm and then tiger stripes on
And the other. And there you go.
Yeah.
And you go back and rub it in their faces.
Yeah. Bam. Here you go.
There goes the tattoo you were talking about. Do you have, in all honesty, do you have a tattoo that you've thought about getting before?
I've thought about it, but honestly, even though like I look like I'm this big ferocious guy, I'm a punk when it comes to pain. There was times like when I was short on money and I tried to do the whole drawing blood thing. I hated it. So, most of my friends
Gotta
have
hustle.
tattoos. And so I'm not against the idea, but I'm against pain. So,
Oh, that makes sense.
You
So
know.
tattoos are out of the window for you. We'll get
Yeah.
you some of the, we meant to get some sleeves.
honestly, it's funny. I actually thought about on the way traffic and stuff. I didn't have time, but I was going to stop by like, the gas station and just like have one ready when you ask the question.
see?
But next
Well,
time.
we'll get some. I think
Yeah.
we're going to get some of those sleeve ones where you just full sleeve tat it up within seconds. But
Right.
I remember one time back in my BC days before Christ, I was out at the bar hanging out with some friends, and there was this band playing. And one of the girls, one of the friends I was with, she saw this drummer guy, and she's like, "Oh my God, like he's so cute, blah 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 blah." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." She's like, "Look at he's got tattoos just like I like and everything." And I'm like, "Those are fake, right?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Those are not real tattoos. He has a tattoo sleeve on." She's like, "No, he doesn't." And I'm like, "Yes, he does. You could see the creases on where his elbow was at." She's like, "No, that's a real tattoo." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever." So at the end of their show or whatever, I end up calling the guy over. I'm like, "Hey, my friend thinks you're cute. She wants to talk to you, blah, blah, blah." And he comes over, and I was like, "Can we see your tattoos?" And he goes, "Actually, they're fake." And he goes like this and pulls the sleeve down. And I was like, "I told you so."
Her
And then
face, she was probably
oh,
just...
dude. She was like, "Wow, I can't believe I just fell for that." And I was like, "That's how good they are, though. You just put on the sleeve and put on like a watch or a bracelet, and
Maybe that's what I got to do.
No.
I got to get like a fake tattoo
that's what you
sleeve.
need. Get a fake
Yeah.
tattoo, man. We'll get you some fake tattoo sleeves."
Let's go.
So you play guitar and
Yeah,
bass.
yes.
You've been part of worship teams. You've gone to different churches and helped out in worship team. How did you get into that? Have you been a church person? Did you grow up in
Yes,
church?
I grew up in church all my life. It pretty much all I ever knew. My parents, which I appreciate, they raised me in a Christian home.
Did you have you're from this area, the Richmond-Rosenberg area?
I'll say I was born in San Antonio.
Oh, okay.
And we've moved around a lot in the Houston area, but majority of my life has been spent in the Richmond-Rosenberg area.
How did you get involved in worship? Was that something you did when you were younger?
So when I first started learning to play the guitar, maybe 2 or 3 months after I learned, the bass player at the church that I grew up in left. And my parents heard the minister of music talking, saying that we need a bass player. And they just say, KJ knows how to play bass. And he was like, all right, cool, you'll play next week.
Just got thrown into it?
Yeah. And so we're playing gospel music. And I've only been playing for 2 or 3 months. Now, I'd like to say that I was good for where I'm at, but nowhere near the level I should be to be playing gospel music, which is
Pretty high?
Yes.
So, so I'm assuming worship would be your God gift, your talent that you use to disciple and stuff like that.
Yes.
Audio. I know you've been a part of multiple podcasts and stuff like that, Christian podcasts and stuff.
Yes.
A couple of other projects you got going on that you've been doing or anything?
Man. Nothing. Right now, I got music out, so you can look me up, Big Box on Spotify, 2 words,
plug.
YouTube, wherever music is. But putting out music under that. But I got some stuff coming out. Not sure when it's going to be released, so I won't talk about it now.
Okay.
But follow me on there, and you guys will see.
That's what's up, man. So, you said that you grew up in church and everything like that, and you've been a part of a worship team at. I'm assuming at every church that you have attended, you've hopped onto the worship team and stuff like that.
Probably since I was like 14.
Wow.
And I'm about to be 28, so.
Do you ever get burnt out?
Yes.
You just gotta You just stop playing,
No, it's not even like that. I think with the playing part itself, I don't get burnout because it's something I truly enjoy. But what I learned is when you do get burnt out, a lot of the times, not always, is because you're not drawing like healthy boundaries. And so that's what I'm learning now. And so now doing that, I don't get burnt out. The few times that I did get burnt out, honestly, I didn't know how to handle it. So even when I did get burnt out, I was still doing it.
Gotcha. So you talked earlier about how you were a bigger guy,
Yes.
heavier set guy. Sports never, I mean, you never played any football or anything like that? Never got into that?
So, long story short, when I was born with, I don't know what the politically correct term is, but I'll just say a thing, so I don't get canceled, 'cause, But basically, it's like some form of like, cerebral palsy to people with their spine. I had that from my arm where I couldn't straighten it out all the way. I still can't now, but before, when I was born, it was here.
Oh, wow.
But yeah. So yeah, this arm doesn't straighten out all the way. And so, yeah, I've always been big. I've always been tall. So there have been people that come up in the stores I remember when I'd go shopping with my dad, there were football coaches. They would just walk, hey, what team do you play for? Oh, he doesn't play. Well, here's my card. Like almost every week when I was in middle school and high school, that was the thing.
They would ask you.
But my dad, we're guys. If he gets hurt, he'll be all right. My mom was always afraid if I break my arm that it may not heal properly.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah.
Did you want to play? Was that something?
Yeah, I wanted to play. And so when I got older, there were talks about surgery, but it was like a 50-50 thing. It might work. It might make it worse. They're not sure. And it's never stopped me from doing anything except sports. So football is the only thing that I can't do. I was like, I'm okay with it.
So, I know growing up as a kid, every kid wants to, like you said, play sports and stuff like that. And then you being involved in church and everything, did that ever, bring any, animosity or anything like, hey, why is it that this had to happen to me? Why is it that I have to have this?
No, because I think it's kind of like people that are born blind versus people that end up blind later in life. Gotcha. I was born like this, so this has always been the norm for me. And even with not being able to play football, that was something my mom, it was just her personal thing. I don't want you to do that because if you get hurt, your arm might not heal back.
Gotcha.
So because I grew up like that, it wasn't like, oh, why is this me? It's just, that's my arm.
Yeah, that's just how you were. But you ended up finding your gift anyways, you play a mean guitar, a mean bass. I know that you've been invited to different churches to play on their worship team and
part of a lot of churches,
guest spots and stuff like that. And
so that's another thing. Anybody that's done sports or music, that's like an all-consuming thing for your life. So even if she was okay with it, I still probably wouldn't have played because it's hard to do music and sports. It's like you got to do one or the other. So
I know that when me and you met, you were playing. Yes. Like I said, the bass and guitar at Anchor Bend. Mm-hmm. Was that the first church that you started playing at, or
No,
that wasn't the church that you were at when you were younger?
When I was younger, it was a church called Covenant Glen, and then after doing there, I started playing it. Like I got involved in like a lot of Hispanic churches and stuff, so I started playing like Spanish Pentecostals and stuff. So. Between Anchor Bend and all these different Spanish Pentecostal churches, that's kind of like really where I spent most of my time until recently.
When you were saying that, I was automatically going to go into the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air song. It's where I spent most of my days. No? No one?
Yeah, we'll put it in post, just...
Yeah. So... going back to God gifts and stuff like that, do you believe, I know that being in church and being a Christ follower, we're all talking about our God gifts that have been given by God that we use to disciple and stuff like that. And what way do you disciple with music? Do you, other than playing in the worship team, do you, do guitar lessons? Do you, how do you reach people with that?
Yeah, so I do guitar lessons. If anything, guitar lessons is probably the first thing I started doing when I learned. So I was with my youth group. They found I played guitar, and literally, like around that 3-4 month mark after I started playing, all the kids were like, hey, can you teach me? So like Wednesday nights when my dad was doing choir rehearsal or stuff, he'd drop me off an hour early, and all the kids that were waiting with their parents, I'd be teaching them guitar. Barely knew what I knew, but I knew a little bit more than them. So it was good enough for them to teach.
So do you still do guitar lessons now?
Yes, yeah. I do guitar, bass lessons, beginner piano. I'm not the best piano player, so like entry-level stuff I can do, but after that, I send you to somebody else.
For those people who are wanting to get into, worship and, I know that I have a buddy of mine. He actually plays the drums at my church that I go to. He was coming to church for a while and everything, and the church had a drum set, but they had just set it up to look like a full worship team. They actually didn't have anyone that played. And he had asked me, he's like, hey, man, do you know if anyone plays the drums? I'm like, since I've been here, no one's played. And he's like, man, I'm going to ask the pastor about getting involved and stuff like that. And I was like, man, that's pretty cool because, I mean, he was fresh on his walk. Mm-hmm. Like, he had just started coming to church. He had attended church previously, but it was when he was younger. And so he kind of was, like, new to the walk still. And so he's our full-time drummer for our worship team and everything. Do you since he's been the drummer, it's catapulted his walk with Christ. Like, he's been more involved. He's he gets time to spend relationships with people who are on the same walk as him and everything like that. He's invited a ton of people to church to see him play. Did you kind of get the same response whenever you started playing? Do you feel like your walk got stronger? Were you able to touch more people as far as, joining that worship team at that church?
Honestly, I think I would say no. I mean, there's always, and it's a great compliment, like after service, somebody come, hey, that thing you did service really touched me or stuff. But I think far as me, it's always been just, sounds cliche, but just like the relationships and interactions that I've had with people. Now, of course, when I'm playing and worship on Sunday, it's a public experience, but I think everything that's happened because of that has been more of like a personal thing. But as far as how me affecting with other people, it's just been talking, hanging out with them. A lot of times when I'm done with church, we're hanging out afterwards, talking people. Mm-hmm. Service has been over for an hour and you're still in the parking lot talking. I think like those moments is probably what's impacted the most. At least that's how I see it.
For you? That's what's up, man. So for someone who is attending a church and would want to join the worship team and everything, and who think that, man, you know what, I just don't think I'm good enough to be on stage, or I don't think I'm good enough, but it catches their attention, what's something you would kind of like, some advice you would give to them?
Well, just talk to whoever's in charge, because one, I guess, what is it you think that you're not good enough about? Because if you talk to the person who's in charge, maybe they can guide you in the right direction, or they might tell you, hey, you actually are up to par. Or if you're not, they might be able to, okay, here, go talk to so-and-so or get lessons from so-and-so, and then let's try to figure it out. Or some churches, they have kind of like different programs in-house that help people get ready. So, the best thing is just talk to whoever and, like I say, shoot your shot.
So do you think that how, because I'm sure it's a yes, but how has being a part of like a worship team at a church helped you in like your life outside of church? Does it benefit you in any way as far as your relationship with God, or do you see any difference in view whenever you're not worshiping or anything?
I think that doing it, if anything, I kind of hold myself to a higher standard, because they say even though you may not be singing, everybody on the stage is a leader. So, whatever you do on the stage or off the stage is a reflection of God, your community, and your church. So whatever I say or do, you have to be careful, because they're going to look back, oh, that's the guy that's up there leading on Sunday.
Gotcha.
And so, anybody that knows me, guys here, watch it, they know that whoever I am on Sunday is the exact same person that I am the other 6 days of the week, which I think is important too. You don't, like, I remember, because, like I said, I've been at different churches, Acapulco or wherever's out down here, I won't say my BC days, but it's like a dance hall kind of bar place. Went there with some friends. There was a band playing. We're like, hey, let's go check it out. Now, this is me still on the worship team. We're not doing anything crazy.
Yeah.
We were drinking, but nobody was getting drunk or anything like that. And then me and the other friends, we run into somebody we see at church. And, me being friendly, hey, how you doing? You're like, hey, oh, brother, what are you doing here? And, oh, I was just here looking for somebody. And, it's just like this whole weird, like she's in her dress. She's got her cowboy boots and everything. Yeah. She's got her drink in her hand. Now, like me, I'm there. I'm not judging you. Like, yeah. But she just puts on like this church switch and like calls me brother and stuff. Like,
what am I doing here?
Yeah, how did I get here? I was going to the bathroom and now I'm at a
This isn't Hobby Lobby.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just like, okay, so yeah, so it's like whoever you are on Sunday, like be that the rest of the week.
Yeah, you heard me tell a story before. If anyone who wants to hear the story, it's on my other episode with my buddy Carlos. But yeah. Some stuff had happened where I had gotten into some trouble and I ended up in a situation I didn't want to find myself in. And my persona changed because of the area I was in. And it had to take a moment for me to realize, like, hey, man, like, what are you doing? Like, be yourself, right. Be who you are and stuff like that. But I think a lot of people tend to have that issue. Well, not necessarily an issue, but tend to have that unconscious switch where, like, oh, my God, like, someone from church is here. Right. I shouldn't be here. I need to change the way I act, change the way I talk and look and everything like that. But I think that the longer you attend church and the closer your relationship gets with God, that becomes the actual you. That becomes the norm.
You start becoming more comfortable in your identity.
More confident and more, this is who I am and I'm unashamed of who I am and who I've become and stuff like that. I know that when I had started my men's group that I had before Ironman, that was a tough situation and a tough change for me because I was at a new church. I had just started attending that church, and I was at the beginning of my walk, and I'm like, man, I need some relationship. I need some guy time. But I need it with guys who are on the same walk as me, not with the normal crowd that I normally hang out with. Excuse me. Not because of, you can't intertwine the two, but I just needed some life-giving friendships and stuff like that. And so I created the group Ironman. And, dude, I created a lot of relationships, with Josh and George and, you being able to meet these guys who I can hang out with, talk to and stuff like that, and be myself as well as them be their selves and stuff. Have you, I'm assuming, I follow you on Instagram, man, and I see you're out in Houston eating at these cool restaurants. You have a group of friends with you. Y'all are at people's houses doing worship and like on a Tuesday night and stuff like that. Like being a part of, the worship team at church is really giving you a lot of multiple relationships that you're able to grow from, I'm assuming, huh?
Yes, definitely. Pretty much all my friendships and relationships at this point come from church, and it's not that, oh, if you don't go to church with me, I'm too good for you. No, it's not like that. You want to be friends, we can do that. Now, depending on your lifestyle, is going to depend on like how close of friends we can be. But
Gotcha.
You don't have to go to church or to be Christian to be friends with me. But because that's where I spend most of my time, assuming when you go to church, most people in there are going to be like-minded. That's just kind of where all my relationships and friends have come out of.
That's what's up, man. That's pretty cool. So I know you said that you got a project coming up. You're not sure of where it's going to go and stuff like that. How do you find the time of being able to fit all this in and everything? I know we talked about you not getting burnt out or anything, but how do you balance worship, practicing, having this thing come out, and then time with friends and work and stuff like that? How do you find a balance for everything?
I think one, being in the community or the church here, I'd make sure it's a healthy church and community, and then good. Also have set healthy boundaries for yourself. Like there's an interview with Eminem, and he was talking about in the studio. He sets a time, and a lot of musicians, when they go in the studio, they're there like all these crazy hours, like 2-3 days straight. He treats it like a 9 to 5. He's like, all right, I'm going to go in, we're going to work on this music from this time, and then when this time hits, I'm going home.
I'm out.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
It's very easy with music or things you're passionate about to just like get locked in. Like there have been a few times where I'll get up around 7 or 8 o'clock, start working on something, and then it's like 9 o'clock, but 9 o'clock p.m. I've spent a whole day in my room, haven't eaten, showered, haven't peed, anything, and just like, I wish I was joking, but no, it's happened. But when you're that immersed into something, it's very easy for that to happen. So I think just having healthy boundaries and then letting the people around you, maybe friends, leaders, or whatever, let them know your boundaries. And then if they respect that and you follow your own boundaries, you're good.
So with you being on the worship team and everything, what is worship to you? I know that people tend to sometimes separate people who are actually singing on the stage and the way that they're able to worship God and their way of being able to, let it all to Him. How do you do that behind a guitar?
There's a few answers. One, and I think a lot of musicians and even singers, I think a lot of them are kind of shy and or a little awkward. And so even for somebody who's singing, I think having that instrument, that's kind of almost like their voice. Whenever I'm going through something, I can, I'll grab my guitar. It might be like strumming some stuff, doing something crazy under whatever. That's a good way to express it. So even worship, even though I don't sing, that guitar is kind of like my voice, worshiping, praising God. But also on the other hand, a lot of times people, when they say worship, they throw it into kind of like a category of music. Like you got rock, rap, blues, and then worship, which we kind of done. You got CCM or gospel, but ultimately worship is the lifestyle you live, how you're worshiping God. Like you've been able to put out this podcast, and hopefully somebody hears this. This helps them draw a connection to God, or at the very least, give them the idea to find a church home. That's a form of worship, as much as me playing or.
I never looked at it that way.
Yeah, or just, opening the door for somebody. That's worship because ultimately it's honoring God and what you're doing is going back.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's a lifestyle choice.
I've never looked at it that way. That's pretty crazy. When you stop and you think about it, like I guess anything and everything you do is pretty much worshiping.
Maybe in what I do, maybe music is a bigger chunk at it. But for people who aren't musically inclined, they've got something else that they might use more of their life for worship.
Oh, that's good, man. I never looked at it that way. So with that being said, do you think that, people who have their God gifts, going back to God gifts and stuff like that, how would you have someone find what that is? Because I think a lot of times people's purpose is what they get lost in when they start going to attending a church, is they're like, oh, I see all these people, they're helping out in the media team. I have these people helping out with the kids and everything. Like, I'm not into that. I'm not into the music. Like, what's my purpose? Like, what's my purpose to do here? Is there any advice you would give to someone on trying to find that purpose for their life?
And just follow and walk in the will of God, and you'll figure it out. Kind of like a butterfly. It starts off as a caterpillar. And I assume when the caterpillar is looking at butterflies, it's not like, man, how do I become one of those? Like, it just does its thing, goes in its cocoon, and it's a butterfly. But also look at, like, your whole life. What are you good at? What do you know that God's given you talent in? Like, for some people, it's hospitality. Like, they may not be able to sing or anything, but they love having people over. They like getting their house real clean. They go spend all this money to cook and just to feed other people.
Having a small group would probably be good for someone who is good at hospitality.
Right, and so not even having a small group, maybe somebody else has a small group, but they don't have a place to put it.
Oh, wow.
If you're in the hospitality, cook the food, clean the house, decorate it, make it look nice, and let Tommy host his small group at your house or whatever. There's so many. Tommy is. Yeah, everybody knows Tommy.
No, man, dude, I didn't never look at it that way either. I mean, I know that we've had like hospitality groups and stuff like that as far as like a place to serve in a church and stuff. But just having your house and opening your doors for people to preach the word of God, or people to be able to host a small group. I mean, that alone is a gift right there, I'm assuming.
Or even like if you might be great at greeting people. Like a lot of times people think, oh, well, they just stand there and say hello. Like you're the first person that somebody meets at a church. I don't know if you remember, Pastor Yolanda, Pastor Chris. I remember she was the first person that I met when I visited it was called the church at the time. And that was one of the things that drew me in. She's the first person to say hello to me, sweet, welcoming. And if it was anybody else or I had like a bad experience, I probably wouldn't have never came back.
Oh, the first impression kind
Right.
of thing.
So you may not realize that just being able to talk to people, some people have George Lee called I think we say resting Pharisee's face. Is that it? You see people and they're just like, I think that's what he calls it.
Wait. Resting Pharisee's face?
Yeah, is that it?
Is that what we call it?
Yeah.
Okay, in the church.
Something. Yeah.
RPF.
Yeah.
Resting Pharisee's face.
Right, exactly. So you may not be mean, but sometimes, everybody doesn't just look pleasant and welcoming.
That's true.
You can be the sweetest person, but if you're like, hey, man, I love you. Like, okay, that's cool, but...
I get that because I remember we did, what was it? The church and... George, what was it where we did the church at WCJC in the parking lot? What was that called?
Oh, the Sunday of Hope. Yeah.
We did Sunday of Hope, and at that time, it was because COVID was around, wasn't it? Right. And
COVID's
so we had to
not
wear
real
masks.
Oh, those were fun. I still have mine.
I remember being in the parking lot, and I had my mask on, and I was directing traffic. I was helping with parking, but at that time, because you were in your car, that was basically a greeter. Right? I mean, you were greeting people pulling in. Well, my mask covered my mouth, and I was smiling.
Right, yes.
But apparently, my eyes were not. And I remember, smile with your eyes. Smile. And I'm like, I am. Like, I don't know what else to do.
Right.
And I remember them coming up to me and being like, yeah, so if you could just stand back here and direct traffic because, your eyes just... aren't giving that happiness look. And I'm like, man, so greeting is not for me, apparently. I have a resting Pharisee's face.
Yeah. And that's okay. You got all these different gifts.
Right.
So
thank you.
Yeah, that's what I say. Just kind of, walk in the will of God. And I like to think that it usually gets revealed when you do that. But look at the kind of grand scope of your life. What are you good at? What does God put in your life for you to do?
Hearing myself talk.
Hey, and there we go. You like hearing yourself talk. You started a podcast.
Yeah, there we go.
And hopefully lives are going to be saved and or changed through this.
I believe so, man.
Yeah.
I hope so. I'm praying for it. I thank you for helping me with it because, like I said, I know that we've talked about it a couple times, and it's actually in motion now, so I'm looking forward to it. It's crazy now that you talk about, following the will of God with it and everything for finding your purpose. A lot of that can be found in serving in church.
Right.
We talk about, your purpose was worship and the hospitality we've talked about and about, the parking team at your church and stuff. All that's our ways of serving. So I think a lot of times too is that people tend to, I remember us being told that it's not we got to serve, it's we get to serve. So, I think a lot of that is people sometimes forget that if you don't enjoy doing it, that's probably not your God gift.
Right.
That's probably not something that you should lock down as your purpose.
Exactly.
For doing something. I mean, I like to smile. Apparently, my eyes don't though. So, but that's pretty good. But with you growing up, and you had said you had what was it called again with your arms?
I didn't give it a name.
You didn't give a name? You don't know the name?
Yeah, I know it. I just forgot it.
Has that kept you from playing?
No.
Giving you any issues?
I said literally, my mom not letting me play football is the only
thing that ever came from
stopped me from.
So when it's the will of God and it's your purpose, He's going to find a way to let you play and stuff like that.
For sure, yeah. That's a guitar. I think maybe when I'm playing, my hand gets a little bit tired faster than most people, I would say. But no, it hasn't stopped me from doing anything.
That's pretty good, man. So when me and you had met at church and we had talked about, I had started texting you about doing the podcast and everything like that. I had asked you about microphones and everything like that. You talked earlier about how audio is kind of like your thing that you kind of do with music and stuff like that. Have you helped out with any other podcasts that are going on right now? I know you had one for a while.
I had some for a while. Yeah, during COVID. During COVID, everybody wanted to start a podcast. So Yeah, I had one then, but no, we haven't worked on any recently.
So you put all your time on this one, bro.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll keep you busy.
I stopped everything just for this.
That's what I'm talking about. Sorry for all those who are getting guitar lessons. You're gonna have to wait to get better.
Like my whole life's on hold for
me?
This. Yes,
Thank
only
you. I
for
appreciate
Charles.
it. Well, George, what are you laughing for over there? I think it's pretty good. It's a pretty good thing, Georgie Porgy over there. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. I appreciate you making more time, not just to do the audio for this podcast, but for being a guest and everything, man. And I hope that you're able to find more people to give guitar lessons to and be able to disciple and stuff like that. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me. Go Cowboys.
Go Cowboys.
It's our year, y'all.
We're going to the Super Bowl this year, I promise.
We are for the next 4 years.
Okay, hold on, calm down.
That's what I'm saying. Come back at me when I'm right, okay? Oh.
Man, I got hot.
That was good.
Hey, it's George again. At the beginning of this episode, I mentioned that Radio Faith is working towards launching 2 new shows this year. Radio Faith is a company that produces Christ-centered content that makes an impact at the intersection of the church and culture. Saved and Tatted moves that mission forward through the raw conversations that Charles has with his guests. These 2 new shows we're working on will provide the same type of space for these type of raw conversations, but in a more nuanced way. The first show will be about sports and the second will be about music. Both sports and music are a large part of cultures around the world. We want to provide digital content that engages these areas of interest and connects both sports fans and music fans to God. To stay up to date on when these shows will be released, subscribe to Saved and Tatted and then jump over to the Radio Faith YouTube channel and subscribe there as well. Thanks again for supporting us along the way. I hope you have a great day. God bless.